If you haven't met anyone you love, would you choose to stay single forever? And how would you confess your love to someone you care about? Let's find out. Emma woke up early every morning just as the first rays of sunlight touched the rooftops of the village. Her little cottage, with its ivy-covered walls and blooming garden, was tucked away at the edge of the village, where the forest began. The birds chirped their morning songs as Emma stretched and got out of bed, ready to start her day. She loved her garden the most. The flowers she planted bloomed in bright colors, filling the air with their sweet fragrance. The villagers often stopped by to admire her work, and Emma would share cuttings of her favorite plants with those who asked. But despite her busy days and the joy she found in her garden, Emma often felt a little lonely. She watched the other villagers, couples walking hand in hand, families laughing together, and she wondered if she would ever find someone to share her life with. One morning, as she was tending to her roses, her neighbor Mrs. Higgins stopped by. She was an elderly woman with a kind face, always full of advice. "Good morning, Emma," Mrs. Higgins greeted. "The roses are looking beautiful as always." "Thank you, Mrs. Higgins," Emma replied with a smile. "Would you like to take some for your garden?" "Oh, that would be lovely," Mrs. Higgins said, her eyes twinkling. "But tell me, Emma, when will you start thinking about finding yourself a nice young man? You're such a sweet girl. It's time you had someone to share these beautiful flowers with." Emma blushed, not sure how to respond. "I suppose when the time is right," she said softly. Mrs. Higgins patted her hand. "Don't wait too long, dear. Love has a way of sneaking up on you when you least expect it." Emma smiled, but inside, she felt a pang of sadness. She had always dreamed of finding love, but in their small village, there were few young men who caught her eye. Most had already settled down, and those who hadn't seemed uninterested in a simple village girl like her. As she watched Mrs. Higgins walk away with a handful of roses, Emma sighed. "Maybe someday," she whispered to herself. A few days later, the village was buzzing with the news of a newcomer. Word spread quickly that a young man had moved into the old cottage near the river, the one that had been empty for years. The villagers were curious, as new faces were rare in their little corner of the world. Emma was at the market, picking up some fresh vegetables, when she overheard two women talking. "Have you seen him?" one woman whispered. "He's quite handsome, isn't he?" "Very," the other agreed. "I wonder why he's come here. Do you think he's hiding from something?" Emma's curiosity was piqued, but she didn't say anything. She had learned long ago that village gossip could be more harmful than helpful. Still, she couldn't help but wonder who this newcomer was and what had brought him to their quiet village. That afternoon, as Emma was walking home, she noticed someone standing by the fruit stall. It was a young man, tall with dark hair and a thoughtful expression. He seemed a bit out of place, as if he wasn't sure where to go or what to do. Without thinking, Emma approached him. "Hello," she said warmly. "Are you new here?" The man looked at her, surprised but grateful for the friendly greeting. "Yes, I am. My name is Daniel." "I'm Emma," she replied with a smile. "Welcome to our village, Daniel. It's not a big place, but it's home." Daniel smiled back, feeling a little more at ease. "Thank you, Emma. I'm still getting used to it here. It's so different from the city." Emma's eyes widened. "You're from the city? That must be a big change." "It is," Daniel admitted. "But I needed a change. The city was too much for me. I wanted to find a place where life is simpler, where I could breathe." Emma nodded in understanding. "Well, you've come to the right place. If you need any help, just ask. The people here are friendly and everyone looks out for each other." "I appreciate that," Daniel said sincerely. "I'm still trying to find my way around." Emma couldn't help but feel a connection to Daniel. There was something about him that intrigued her, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. As they talked, She found herself drawn to his quiet strength and the kindness in his eyes. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Daniel's paths crossed often. Sometimes it was at the market, other times at the river where Daniel liked to sit and think. Each time they would talk a little more, learning about each other's lives and dreams. One day, Emma invited Daniel to visit her garden. "It's my favorite place in the world," she told him as they walked down the path to her cottage. "I spend most of my time here." When they arrived, Daniel was amazed by the beauty of the garden. "It's incredible, Emma. You have a real talent for this." Emma blushed with pride. "Thank you. I've been working on it for years. It's my little piece of paradise." Daniel looked around, admiring the colorful flowers and the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves. "I can see why you love it here. It's so peaceful." They spent the afternoon in the garden, talking and laughing as Emma showed Daniel her favorite plants and explained how she took care of them. Daniel was impressed by her knowledge and dedication, and he found himself enjoying her company more than he had expected. As the sun began to set, they sat on a bench at the edge of the garden, watching the colors change in the sky. For a moment, they were both silent, lost in the beauty of the moment. Then, Daniel turned to Emma. "I'm glad I met you, Emma. You've made this place feel like home." Emma's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had never felt such a strong connection with anyone before. The way Daniel spoke to her with such genuine warmth made her feel special in a way she had never experienced. "I'm glad I met you too, Daniel," she replied softly, looking into his eyes. "You've brought something new into my life. It's hard to explain, but I feel it." Daniel smiled, his gaze steady on hers. "I feel it too, Emma. It's like we were meant to meet, as if everything in our lives led us to this moment." For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. The only sound was the gentle rustling of the leaves and the distant chirping of crickets as the dusk settled in. Emma felt a flutter of excitement mixed with a bit of uncertainty. Could this be the beginning of something more than just friendship? As the evening grew darker, Emma knew it was time to say goodbye. "It's getting late," she said, reluctantly breaking the silence. "I should head inside." Daniel nodded, though he didn't want to leave. "I should go too. But thank you, Emma, for everything." Emma smiled. "You're always welcome here, Daniel. Anytime." With that, they stood up, and Daniel walked Emma to her door. As she opened it, he hesitated for a moment, then said, "Good night, Emma." "Good night, Daniel," she replied, her heart still racing as she watched him walk down the path and disappear into the twilight. That night, as Emma lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. His words, his smile, the way he made her feel. It was all so new and exciting. She knew she was falling for him, but a small voice in the back of her mind cautioned her to be careful. She didn't want to rush into anything, especially if she wasn't sure how Daniel felt about her. But as the days passed, their bond only grew stronger. They spent more time together, whether it was working in the garden, walking through the village, or simply sitting by the river talking about everything and nothing. The villagers noticed their growing closeness, and soon the gentle whispers of gossip began to circulate. "Have you seen how close Emma and Daniel have become?" Mrs. Higgins remarked to one of her friends as they passed by Emma's garden one afternoon. "It's so sweet. I have never seen her so happy." "Yes, they make a lovely couple," her friend agreed. "I think it's only a matter of time before they realize they're meant for each other." Emma overheard these comments one day while she was at the market. Instead of feeling embarrassed or annoyed, she found herself smiling. The villagers saw something between her and Daniel, something that she herself was beginning to hope for. However, not everything was as easy as it seemed. As Daniel settled into village life, he found himself missing certain aspects of the city. The hustle and bustle, the variety of people, and even the anonymity it provided. In the city, he could blend in and not be noticed, but in the village, everyone knew who he was. The quietness that had once appealed to him now sometimes felt too silent, too isolating. One evening as he sat by the river, staring into the water, these thoughts weighed heavily on his mind. Emma, who had been walking by, noticed him and immediately sensed that something was bothering him. "Daniel, is everything all right?" she asked as she approached him. Daniel looked up, surprised but grateful for her concern. "I'm just thinking," he replied, trying to find the right words. "I love it here, Emma, I really do. But sometimes I feel like I don't belong. I miss the city, the energy, the feeling of being part of something bigger." Emma sat down beside him, understanding what he was going through. "It's okay to feel that way, Daniel. Change is hard and it's normal to miss what you left behind, but you're not alone. You have me, and the village has started to accept you as one of their own. It just takes time." Daniel sighed, feeling a little relieved to share his thoughts. "I know, and I'm so grateful for you, Emma. I just need to remind myself why I came here in the first place." Emma smiled gently. "You came here to find peace, to start over. And you're doing that little by little. You've already made a difference in my life, Daniel. You're not as alone as you think." Her words touched him deeply. Emma's unwavering support was like a beacon of light in his moments of doubt. "Thank you, Emma. You always know what to say." Emma reached out and squeezed his hand. "That's what friends are for." They sat together in silence for a while, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. In that moment, Daniel realized that the peace he had been searching for wasn't just about the place. It was about the people in it and the connections he was forming, especially with Emma. As summer arrived, the village prepared for its annual festival, a time of celebration, music, and dancing. Emma had always loved the festival, but this year she was especially excited because she would be attending it with Daniel. Part 1 of the story ends here. Will Emma and Daniel attend the festival together? Will Emma's hope be broken on the day of the festival? To find out, click the video here or follow the link in the description.